Welcome to today's C-Safe webinars. The C-Safe webinars are short, practical and action-focused sessions designed to keep safety at the top of mind for everyone who works within the Australian commercial seafood industry. The webinar series showcase those key safety topics to provide others with real-world guidance through that peer-to-peer learning, so learning from each other so that we can all be safe in what we do. Today's topic is risk assessments that work for your team. So we will record the first half of today's session, which will go for about 15 minutes, so that those who are unable to attend in real time can still benefit from Harriet's awesomeness. But we will stop the recording during the Q&A session in the second half, just so we can all speak open and freely. So I have the honour of introducing today's speaker is Harriet Fowler. Thank you very much. She's the head of QHS&E and risk at the Sydney Fish Market. Harriet brings a strong background in environmental health and safety, holding a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health and Safety. She has extensive experience in regulatory compliance across environment, health, safety, food safety, and public health, and her work focuses on developing practical risk assessment approaches that are clear, usable, and aligned with how teams operate in actual real-world settings. So with that, I will hand over to you, Harriet.
Thanks, Bridie. Good morning or afternoon to some of you. That made me sound very, very fancy. I'm definitely not that fancy, but looking forward to talking about risk assessments to everyone. So just a little bit about me. I come from Anheuser-Busch, so I've come from the beer industry and now I'm in the fish market. So from beer to fish, I don't know which I prefer more. Fairly new to the business, only been here about a year and a half, so still not too familiar with everything that goes on in the wild world of fishing and agriculture, but we're getting there bit by bit. So I want to talk to you a little bit about risk assessments today. So we all know what a risk assessment is, we all know why we have to do it, there's a legal requirement to do it. But the good thing is in legislation, it says we must assess the risk and control the risk to as low as reasonably possible or practicable. What it doesn't say is that you have to do it a certain way, which is kind of in our favour. So we've all seen clunky risk assessments like these. I'll share my screen, you can see all my billions of tabs now that I have open. Hopefully you can see my screen now. So we've all seen these kind of risk assessments before, I'm sure. They're long, they're clunky, they don't really work for everyone, and they're kind of overwhelming when you look at them as well. Even I get overwhelmed, and I've been in the field a long time. So what we try to do is develop something that's a bit more user-friendly and that everyone can use, and I can share this template with anybody that wants it as well. So this is a slightly new template, and this is a task-based risk assessment. So this is looking at a dynamic risk, so looking at an individual task instead of your whole risk register and whole risks to your operation. So I want to keep it really kind of high level and make it easy. So what I want to do today is just walk through this with you. Any questions, please jump in and we can kind of work through it together, really. So this is what we use for some of our things at Sydney Fish Market. As you can imagine, we've got quite a lot of different tasks. I'm not in any way familiar with what goes on too much at the wharf, so I just ChatGPT'd a lot of things in the last 10 minutes to find out how you dock a boat. But today we're going to be docking a boat. So task, really simple, docking a boat at Sydney Fish Market, department, commercial fishing, date of assessment, and area. What I always say is when you're doing a risk assessment, main thing to consider is that you don't do it alone, and actually ask the people that are doing the task. I don't know anything personally. Yeah, I might be head of health and safety, but I don't know anything about the day-to-day task of docking a boat. It's not my field of expertise. And a lot of us on this call would be managers and not necessarily be doing the day-to-day tasks. So what we want to do is, yes, this assessment was done by myself, but I consulted Joe Bloggs and John Doe, some made-up names there for you, the deckhand and the boat driver. Apologies in advance, I probably have not got those acronyms quite right. But what we want to do is show that we're consulting and communicating with our staff, another legal requirement. So Joe Bloggs and John Doe has helped me with this risk assessment, and we're going to ask them then what step-by-step tasks we need to consider. So keep it really easy. I always say the best thing to do for something like this is, a lot of us have got young children. I think you're trying to explain it to a young child. O is the easiest way to do it. Really nice and simple. So deploy fenders, prepare lines, check conditions, slow speed, angle boat. I won't read it all out to you. So these are step-by-step things that we're going to do to basically get the boat to the dock, get it hooked up, get it to safety. So what we want to do then is, once we've got all of our tasks, step-by-step tasks done, we want to consider what hazards there are for each one. So again, we're looking at the hazard, we're looking at the task, we're looking at the hazard, we're looking at the risk and how we can control it. So anyone on this call, so I know a lot of you are on mute, but if anybody wants to jump in, is anyone familiar with deploying fenders or preparing lines, and can help me out a little bit? Come on, they've got to be one of you.
I was going to say I'm going to dob in Brad.
Okay.
Go on, go ahead.
Or the hazard.
Yeah, so tell me what the hazard would be. If I was going to be deploying my fenders and preparing my lines, what's the hazard?
Getting your fingers squashed. I mean,
Yeah.
well, that's a risk, I suppose. The hazard is the boat moving up against a wharf.
Yeah, perfect. So we don't need to be too, so we can always add hazard risk here. As long as we assess it, it's fine. So boats, so we'll say probably entrapment, and then the risk is, I don't know, crushes to polygons. There we go. So that's perfect. So we're thinking about what we want to do in terms of what the hazard. We've got another hand up there.
Yeah, you could also include strains and sprains from manual handling, throwing ropes and.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So we'll put that on the next.
I love how this is an example of collaborating and talking to people who actually do the work. I love it.
Because I don't know anything. I literally had to watch a video on how to put a boat up to the wharf. So thank God you're all experts, because I'm not. But that's the main thing about this, is don't do it yourself. Use the experts to do the risk assessment. They're going to know a lot more than you do, and you're going to find out a lot more about hazards. I didn't think about half these things already that you've mentioned. So we've got a couple of hazards here. So what we want to do is we want to have a look at how we can control the risk. So hierarchy controls. So what we've got here is basically how can we minimize this risk as low as reasonably practicable. So can we eliminate it? Can we reduce it? Can we isolate it? Can we control it? Can we use PPE? And finally, disciplinary. It's not something we want to think about too much just yet. So talk to me about the first one. So entrapment and crush to body parts. What can we do in terms of, if you're thinking of hierarchy of controls, can we remove that risk? No?
Really, the boat's got to tie up against the wharf.
Exactly. Can we reduce or substitute the risk?
No, it's still got to tie up against the wharf.
Definitely. And then what about prevent access to the hazard? So we can't really can we use guarding, anything like that? Probably not. Unless there's some really fancy engineering control that I'm not aware of.
Tires on the side of the boat.
Yeah, definitely. What about controls? So this is probably the one that will be using the most, is controls. What controls can we put in place? So it might be, have a think, what can we do that's kind of control based?
So you could procedures in place for the task.
Yeah, definitely. So we might put an SOP in place, written policy. We might, we can also think of it just as a really practical approach. So let's make sure when we're putting our deploy fenders, let's do it before we even get to the wharf, because then you shouldn't have the chance to even get in.
This one's also administrative, but you could also use signage, like at certain areas where there is the risk of pinch point. You could probably put a pinch point sign at that particular place.
That's a really good one.
It's also marking where the fenders need to go. So people aren't just not they're in the same place every time, and there might be specific places you need them.
Yeah, definitely, that's really good. Sorry, spelling's not great now. We're
Like having the SOP training.
Training, yeah, as well.
yeah, that's a really good one. So I think we've got quite a few really good things. Really good things here. So when I look at controls, I always say to the team, I say, everything we put in place, are we happy if our toddlers, our young children or family members would go and do this procedure? Probably not on your big giant boats, but let's think for maybe a really small boat. If they were going to go and do these control measures, are we happy that they're going to be safe enough? There's always going to be a risk, no matter what we do in life. We can't bubble wrap people. But have we thought of everything that we could possibly do to make it safe? And that's always a good way to think, okay, yeah, we've done everything we can, or no, there's a next step we need to do, and we put some additional actions or controls in place.
Thinking that through with preparation, splicing eyes into the ropes before you're using them, all of that kind of stuff.
Sorry, you broke up then. Say that again for me.
Just making sure everything's prepared. Like, you've got a mooring line, making sure you've got your eye splice already spliced into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Tie the minimum up at the last point kind of thing, not have everything ready to go.
Sorry, my first language is not English, so I'm struggling with the spelling today. There we go, perfect. Yeah, exactly. So making sure everything's prepared, and that's the whole point of this risk assessment. So this is not done after the fact, this is done before. So we've got a new task in hand. We're thinking, okay, what are the risks? Let's go out as a team, let's assess the risk, let's put some control measures in place and make it as safe as we possibly can. Again, we can't bubble wrap people, but let's make it as safe as we can to make sure people go home safe. Then we're looking at the risk and the frequency. So let's have a look. So we put our hazard, we know what the hazard is, we put our controls in place. Then we're having a look at our risk matrix. So in terms of likelihood, what do we think that could be? So after we put those controls in place, do we think that entrapment might be rare, unlikely, possible, likely, certain?
Unlikely, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And this is obviously
after the controls.
Do you have definitions for them?
Sorry?
Do you have definitions?
I do, and I can definitely add them onto this as well. Yeah, I can. Yeah. So, sorry, you go. No, it's fine. So we can have a little look. May as well, let's Google it. Let's Google it together. Here we go. So they're all pretty standard. Let's have a look. So every company's got slightly different ones. I'm trying to find a nice one so it's easier to read. Here we go.
I think to some degree you'd have to individualize the consequences to your own organization.
Definitely. So for major risks for your organization might be a lost time incident or something along those lines, or quite a big financial risk. If you're a large organization, it may be kind of a fatality or something that's over $1 million worth of loss. So it's going to be different for every organization, definitely, and that's something for you to think about in terms of your likelihood and risk impact. So here we go. So we talked about likelihood. So we've got here rare, probably not going to happen, to unlikely to happen, possible. So these are kind of these are our likelihood score. There we go. Likelihood scores. So almost certain will probably happen, and this would be in terms of, let's say, a fatality or lost time incident or like a serious injury is what we're kind of thinking about around this. So having to think of that, I think unlikely is probably quite a good one. Sorry, making my screen giant. Probably quite a good way to go in terms of this. Then what about, this is the more difficult one to kind of think about, and this was definitely again, it depends on the organization, it depends on individual kind of ideas, I guess, for what you think might happen. So we've got here not probably, very unlikely to happen, and then unlikely to happen, and then minimal injury required, no minimal intervention or treatment, no time off work required. So that might be, for example, I don't know, a small kind of stub the toe, for example. Minor might be first aid injury, or you might go to tussle for some kind of stitches or treatment or x-ray. Moderate is kind of looking at your more LTI, lost time injury kind of thing, so off work for a period of time, or you're going to be reporting to safe work for kind of a serious safety incident or quite a nasty injury. Then you've got major, which is more kind of, we're talking
Probably moderate.
Sorry, go ahead.
Probably moderate, because when you're dealing with fingers, it's very easy to sustain a fracture from a very minor type of incident, and that can put you out potentially for some time.
Definitely, yeah. And I think, again, it depends on the organisation. So, for example, if you've got a very small little fishing boat and you're putting your fenders out and your ropes out, it's very unlikely that it's probably going to cause a fatality. You're looking at, you're right, you know, crushed fingers, crushed limbs, something more on the moderate side of things. Where if you've got a big fishing boat like we've got at Sydney Fish Market, these kind of things can very easily cause a fatality or a very long time lost LTI. So you're looking at more of the major and catastrophic side of things. So again, it depends on your organisation. So if we're thinking of your organisation, if we're doing a small fishing boat and it's more likely that it's going to be moderate, then definitely we'll stick to moderate. If we're talking about one of these big tuna fishing vessels that are going out to sea, then we're looking at more of a kind of fatality, lost time incident side of things. So given that in place, when I did this, I based it on a small fishing boat. So we'll do, I think risk, we said, what did we say for, sorry, should be, so we've got risk was unlikely, we did unlikely for this. And then significance, we said moderate. Let's change this, sorry. Okay, so when we look at that, then we've got likelihood, unlikely, and then moderate. So we've got 6, which is, you'll see here, it's amber, so it's a medium risk. So what we want to do is there anything else in addition that we can put in place? If we're looking at high risk, if we get in these red zones here, we want to say, right, let's stop that job. It's still not safe. We need to put some additional controls in place. When we get down to the medium risk, we want to say, okay, is there anything additional we can put in place, or are we happy that we've reduced this as low as practical? If we get it to a medium risk and we're happy and we think, okay, this is everything we can do, what we want to be doing is then just assessing this on a routine basis. So we've done our controls, we're going to go and do our task, we're going to make sure the controls that we've said are in place, and then we're going to review it as a team, see if it works and if we're happy. If it's low risk, you don't need to review it as often. Maybe you look at this task once a year. You're happy all the controls are in place, and we're kind of going to, you know, not stop there, but we're going to routine monitor on a more long basis. So I think that's kind of it in terms of dynamic risk assessments. Any questions at all?
Before we jump into the question time, I just wanted to thank you, Harriet, for taking us through that. Compared to the Excel spreadsheet you showed at the beginning, this is a lot less terrifying. And I love that the activity is inclusive of those who, like you said, are the experts, the people who have the actual experience. And I think Brad and Oliver clearly demonstrated the value of having input from the people who are actually doing the work and not creating these risk assessments in isolation. I really love that. We will stop the recording now for the purpose of having an open and honest Q&A session, but the recording will now be available for everybody else.